You know Oscar Wilde for his dazzling wit, right? Those unforgettable epigrams, these incredibly short, witty sayings that just sparkle. They've really become part of our cultural fabric. But what if we told you there's, well, so much more to the man behind those legendary lines?
Yeah, exactly. Today we're taking a real deep dive into the extraordinary life and works of Oscar Wilde. We'll unpack how his personal philosophy of aestheticism, his groundbreaking plays, and just the incredibly rigid moral landscape of Victorian England shaped not only his art but also led to his, well, spectacular rise and ultimately his tragic fall.
Our mission here is to move beyond the superficial, give you an insider's view on how Wilde's genius really challenged his era and why his legacy still resonates so powerfully today. What makes him so fascinating, I think, is the way his life, with its incredible highs and devastating lows, became this living embodiment of his philosophy.
And we've pulled together insights from a great range of sources, literary analyses of his plays, stuff on De Profundis, a critical study looking at his moral philosophy, biographical accounts. Quite a mix.
Okay, so to really get Wilde, we have to start with the man himself, right? Where did he come from?
Right. Well, he was born Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wilde in Dublin back in 1854. And he came from a really intellectual Anglo-Irish family. His mother, Lady Jane Wilde, she actually wrote under the name Speranza, was a poet and an Irish nationalist. You can see how she'd instill in him a deep love for literature.
Speranza, yeah. And his father.
His father, Sir William Wilde, was actually a famous ear and eye surgeon and also known for his philanthropy, so a pretty prominent family.
Definitely a background steeped in intellect and public life. And it sounds like he absolutely inherited that spark.
Oh, absolutely. Wilde excelled academically, first at Trinity College, Dublin, then he went on to Magdalen College, Oxford, became an exceptional classicist, fluent in French and German, too. But what really set him apart even then was this incredibly flamboyant public persona he started cultivating.
That's what everyone remembers, isn't it? The wit, the clothes.
Exactly. Known for his biting wit, extravagant dress, and just sparkling conversational skills. He famously declared at customs in New York City, "I have nothing to declare except my genius."
Classic Wilde. It's fascinating, though, how that persona wasn't just like a personal quirk. It was tied into his whole philosophy.
Completely, Wilde really embodied the art for art's sake idea, which was central to turn-of-the-century aestheticism. He genuinely believed that art existed purely for its own beauty and pleasure, not to teach a moral lesson, not to serve any practical purpose.
So just to be clear, it wasn't about sending a message or anything. It was just beauty is enough.
Pretty much. Beauty is its own justification. His aestheticism drew from his mentors at Oxford, people like John Ruskin and Walter Pater, but he also mixed in influences from French symbolism. For Wilde, the ultimate aim was to live one's own life as an elegantly finished artifice. It wasn't just about making beautiful things, it was about being a beautiful thing in a way.
And that sets up this immediate clash with the Victorian era, doesn't it? I mean, you think Victorian England, you think strict moral codes, rigid social rules, repressed expression.
Absolutely, it was a head-on collision. Wilde deliberately used his writings and his very public self to sort of undermine those norms. His belief in art for art's sake was a direct challenge to the Victorian utilitarian values, the idea that art had to be useful or morally instructive.
And the flashy clothes, the whole style.
Yeah.
That was a deliberate poke in the eye to their ideas of modesty and conformity.
You got it. A very conscious rejection. And he didn't stop at aesthetics or morals. He pushed against gender roles, too, which feels really ahead of his time. Think about the importance of being earnest. Lady Bracknell isn't just a funny old lady. She's this dominating figure. Our sources see her as a critique of how limited women's roles were then.
Right. And Mrs. Erlyn, in Lady Windermere's Fan, she refuses to just be the virtuous wife, doesn't she? She embraces her independence.
Exactly. She challenges those really narrow societal ideas about female morality. If you look across his work, you see Wilde constantly nudging, sometimes shoving, against what was considered acceptable.
And that whole rebellious spirit, it bleeds into his writing style itself. The plays are just full of witty dialogue, clever wordplay, double meanings.
Oh yeah, they reflected the kind of indulgence, even as they're critiquing the excesses of the era. Characters like Lady Bracknell are almost larger than life, exaggerated, right? They embody the absurdities of the aristocracy. His writing, it's all satire and irony, mirroring that societal obsession with pleasure and, well, appearances.
So let's talk about the plays themselves. He wrote 7 and sort of divided them into comedies and more serious works.
That's right. The social comedies are the famous ones, the ones that brought him money and fame. But before those, he had some lesser-known serious attempts. There was Vera, which he wrote when he was only 25. It's kind of seen as an early piece, mixing Russian politics, melodrama, but you can already see flashes of that witty dialogue.
And the Duchess of Padua?
That one felt a bit more like imitation, maybe. A well-done imitation, but perhaps not quite his own unique voice yet. A kind of derivative verse drama.
But then came Salome. That sounds like a different beast altogether.
So it absolutely was. Published in 1891, a serious drama, undeniably important culturally in Europe. And what's really interesting is he wrote it in French. He was influenced by this Belgian playwright, Maurice Maeterlinck, using a very stylized, almost ritualistic form. Lots of repetition, parallelism, that kind of thing.
Written in French. Okay, tell us more about Salome. What made it so groundbreaking? And maybe a bit disturbing. I read that he totally changed the biblical story.
He did. In Wilde's version, it's Salome herself, not her mother Herodias, who wants John the Baptist Joachim in the play dead. And Herod is this more complex figure. The setting alone, this moonlit terrace, and the motifs, strong contrasts of white, black, red, they really ramp up the dramatic tension.
And the psychology of it.
That's where it gets really deep. Wilde basically invented Salome's spurned love for Joachim. She's both attracted and repulsed by his uncanny beauty, as one source puts it. Her rejected passion fuels this lust. And it leads to that horrifying climax where she demands his head.
After the dance of the seven veils, right?
Yes. And then she has this delirious scene with the severed head before Herod orders her crushed to death by soldiers' shields. It's described as a pure act, unsullied by words. Just brutal. Some critics, like Richard Ellman, saw Joachim representing Wilde's more spiritual side, maybe linked to Ruskin, and Salome representing pure sensational linked to Pater, with Herod caught in the middle. It's a dark look at obsession.
Wow, intense stuff. Okay, let's maybe pivot back to the plays that made him famous, the social comedies.
Right, the ones people know best. Lady Windermere's Fan in 92, A Woman of No Importance in 93, and An Ideal Husband in 95. These are those classic drawing room comedies, focusing on the relationships, the scandals, the secrets of high society.
And they had recurring character types, didn't they? Like the really uptight, puritanical ones, the hypocrites who look good on the surface.
Exactly, and the witty Gandys, like Lord Darlington. And these fascinating characters often described as poised and prosperous fallen women, like Mrs. Erland or Mrs. Chevley. The plots usually hinged on some guilty secret and all the complications that arise from it.
Can you give us a quick example?
Sure. In Lady Windermere's Fan, the title character almost makes the same mistake her mother, Mrs. Erland, did years ago. Mrs. Erland has to sacrifice her own reputation to save her daughter, who doesn't even know who she is. Or An Ideal Husband, where Sir Robert Chiltern, this pillar of society, is being blackmailed by Mrs. Chevley over something shady he did early in his career. Political intrigue, moral dilemmas.
It sounds like even in these lighter comedies, there were serious undertones, though I read that sometimes Wilde struggled to balance the wit with the moral point.
That's a fair criticism some sources make. There was maybe a bit of a divided aim sometimes. Was it just about being clever, or was there a deeper message? But he finally nailed that balance, completely resolved that tension in his absolute masterpiece.
The importance of being earnest?
The importance of being earnest,
Yeah.
yeah. The high watermark of his career, no question. The subtitle says it all. A trivial play for serious people. It's brilliant satire wrapped up in sparkling farce.
So break down the genius of Ernest for us. The plot revolves around bunburying, right? This idea of having a secret identity.
Exactly. Creating fake identities or imaginary invalids like Bunbury
Ah.
to escape boring social obligations. It's hilarious. But the play is also cleverly making fun of Victorian melodrama, the whole cliche of the lost baby, the foundling. And it pokes fun at determinism with the name Ernest itself. It's just so tightly constructed.
In the dialogue, W.H. Auden said, Wilde basically made dialogue the most important thing, that the characters are defined by what they say.
Absolutely. Think of Lady Bracknell. To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune.
To lose both looks like carelessness. It's just perfect.
Isn't it? And the ending, the big reveal. Jack Worthing, the guy found in the handbag at Victoria Station, turns out he is actually named Ernest, and he's Lady Bracknell's nephew, Algernon's older brother. The final line from Jack just nails the title's pun. I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
It opened in February 1895. Huge success, right? Critical acclaim, popular hit.
Tremendous success. It really cemented his reputation as a top playwright, but, well, the triumph was incredibly brief.
Yeah, this is where it all unravels so quickly and tragically. He sued the Marquess of Queensberry.
He did. Queensberry was the father of Lord Alfred Douglas, Wilde's lover. Queensberry left this calling card for Wilde at his club, calling him a posing sodomite, misspelling included. Wilde, maybe pushed by Douglas, sued for libel, but the trial backfired spectacularly. Evidence of Wilde's relationships with other men came out. He had to drop the case.
And then they turned around and arrested him.
Immediately. Prosecuted for gross indecency under a relatively new law, the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1885. The trials became this huge public spectacle. It really exposed the hypocrisy and the prejudice of the time. Wilde was painted as this deviant, a threat to society.
It must have been horrific. How did he actually defend himself in court? I read about a really powerful moment.
There was. When cross-examined about the love that dare not speak its name, he gave this incredibly eloquent speech. He described it as a great affection of an elder for a younger man, comparing it to David and Jonathan, Plato, Michelangelo. There's a brave defense of same-sex love, but in that climate,
It wasn't enough.
no. The first jury was hung, couldn't reach a verdict, but they retried him. He was convicted and got the maximum sentence, 2 years hard labor.
And the prison conditions were brutal, weren't they?
Appalling. Places like Pentonville, Wandsworth, hard labor like the treadmill, picking oakum rope apart. His health completely broke down. He suffered a ruptured eardrum in a fall, an injury that would contribute to his death later. They transferred him to Reading Jail, stripped him of his name, just called him Prisoner C3.3. Utterly dehumanizing.
God, see, 3.3. But it was in Reading Jail during that last year that he wrote De Profundis.
Yes, From the Depths. A massive 50,000-word letter written to Lord Alfred Douglas that wasn't fully published until years later. It's this incredible document of self-examination, a kind of spiritual journey through suffering. He really lays into Douglas for his vanity and selfishness, but crucially, he also takes responsibility for his own downfall. He wrote, "I am here for having tried to put your father in prison." It's raw.
It sounds like a profound transformation. Did he find some kind of meaning in the suffering?
It seems so. He traces this path through sorrow towards acceptance. He talks about the shame he brought on his family, the agony of his mother dying while he was locked up. He came to see suffering differently, writing, "Where there's sorrow, there is holy ground." He reached a state of what he called absolute humility. He regretted focusing only on the sunny side of life, saying, "My only mistake was that I confined myself so exclusively to the trees of what seemed to me the sunlit side of the garden, and shunned the other side for its shadow and its gloom." Powerful stuff.
And after he got it, exile.
Immediately. Released in 1897, went straight to France, never returned to Britain or Ireland. It was there he wrote his last major work, The Ballad of Reading Jail. He published it under his prison number, C33. It's a long poem about the brutal reality of prison life, focusing on the execution of another prisoner. It contains that incredibly famous line, "Yet each man kills the thing he loves."
A haunting line. And his final years.
Sadly, they were spent in poverty and exile. He died in Paris in 1900, only 46 years old. The cause was meningitis, likely a complication from that ear injury in prison. It took over a century, but he was finally given a posthumous pardon for the gross indecency conviction in 2017, a symbolic but important correction of history.
Such a tragic arc. Okay, let's shift slightly to talk about his moral philosophy, because it feels key to understanding him, but it's often maybe simplified.
Definitely. A lot of people just see Wilde as promoting pure aesthetic hedonism. You know, beauty and pleasure are everything. Pursue them without any limits or consequences.
But you're saying it's more complicated than that.
Much more. Especially if you look closely at the picture of Dorian Gray. One of our sources argues convincingly that his real philosophy wasn't pure hedonism, but what they call ethical hedonism.
Ethical hedonism. Okay, what's the difference? It's not just pleasure at all costs.
Exactly. Dorian Gray is often misread as just celebrating that aesthetic lifestyle. But it's actually a critique, a cautionary tale. Dorian pursues this life of unrestricted aestheticism, pure pleasure and sensation, and where does it lead him? Tragedy, death, and the ruin of others around him.
Right. Wilde himself even said the book had a moral. All excess, as well as all renunciation, brings its own punishment.
Precisely. The novel seems to argue that, yes, pursue pleasure and beauty, but do it with reason, with rationality. Unbridled pleasure, unchecked sensation leads to destruction. Dorian realizes this too late, doesn't he? The soul is a terrible reality, he thinks, but it can't save him by then.
So Wilde believed art had a deeper purpose than just being beautiful.
It seems so. Not just beauty and pleasure, but art should also affect lives positively, maybe even serve as an ethical tool for social transformation. It wasn't just surface-level duty. It had the potential for depth and impact.
And the tragic irony is how his own life kind of mirrored Dorian's path in some ways.
It's hard not to see the parallel. His own pursuit of pleasure, the drinking, the partying, the indulgence, ultimately contributed to his downfall, his imprisonment, his early death. It really underscores that philosophy. Pleasure without limits, without ethical consideration, can lead to sorrow. It's like his own life became the ultimate proof of his more nuanced ethical hedonism.
Wow. What an incredible, complex figure. We've gone from the glittering salons of London, the height of fame with Ernest, to the absolute depths of Reading jail. We've seen his wit, his commitment to art for art's sake, his insights into human nature. He really carved out a unique space, didn't he? Even as his life became this dramatic showdown with Victorian society.
Absolutely, a constant challenge to the constraints of his time.
So what's the big takeaway for us, for you listening? Maybe it's that famous line, often attributed to Wilde, though, actually, from Lady Windermere's fan. "We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." Wilde's life, his art, it kind of reminds us that even in the darkest times, even facing the harshest judgment, that search for beauty, for self-reflection, for personal truth, it can still light the way, can't it?
Beautifully put. And if this has intrigued you, well, you really should read his work. Pick up The Importance of Being Earnest for guaranteed laughs, or explore the really haunting, disturbing beauty of Salome. Or, for something completely different, dive into the raw honesty of De Profundis. Each one shows you a different side of this truly unique mind.